The night was quiet in the dense forests of Africa, the silence broken only by the rustling of the wind. Captain Zola, one of the most feared female soldiers in the army, crouched low behind the thick trees, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. She had been on countless missions, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she wasn't the hunter. She was the hunted. It was a trap. Zola's breath hitched as she felt the weight of betrayal hanging in the air. For weeks, she had been tracking a powerful Mafia lord, but it wasn't just him she was after. No, tonight, she had come to face someone much worse. A man she trusted, General Delamny, her father. How had it come to this? The story had started years ago, back when Zola was just a young recruit in the military, eager to prove herself. Her father, a legend in the African military, had taught her the rules of war. Never trust anyone, not even family. Yet she had never imagined that one day those words would apply to him. As Zola closed her eyes, she remembered the last conversation they'd had. He told her she was ready, that she would soon be leading the most dangerous missions in the country. But those words were a lie. The general had been using her all along. The sound of boots crunching on the dry leaves snapped her out of her thoughts. She slowly turned, heart pounding, only to find herself face to face with a group of soldiers from her own army. Her soldiers, but they weren't here to support her. They've been sent by him, Zola whispered to herself, clenching her fists. Before she could move, the soldiers surrounded her, their guns drawn. Zola could feel the weight of her father's betrayal in every step they took. This wasn't just an arrest. This was an execution. One soldier stepped forward. His face was masked by a dark hood, but Zola recognized his voice. It was Captain Mpufu, one of the few soldiers she had trusted completely. Now he was just another pawn in her father's game. "Move," Mpufu ordered, his voice cold and empty of the respect he once held for her. Zola's eyes burned with fury. She wasn't going down without a fight. With a swift motion, she disarmed the soldier nearest to her and kicked him to the ground. In an instant, she was on the move, using every skill her father had taught her. But as she glanced back, she saw that more soldiers were closing in. She was surrounded. A sharp pain pierced through her side. Zola gasped, looking down to see a trail of blood seeping through her uniform. The world seemed to spin, and for a moment, her vision blurred. But Zola wasn't going to die here. Not today, not like this. She tried to stand, but the pain in her side intensified. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her body struggling to stay upright. They had taken her down, captured her, and now they were going to bring her to her father, the man who had betrayed her. "Don't think you're going to get away with this, Mpofu," Zola said through clenched teeth. He didn't respond. Instead, he signaled to the other soldiers, who moved in closer to her, pulling her arms behind her and forcing her to her knees. Zola was finally captured, but deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Her father thought he had won, but what he didn't know was that Zola had one thing he could never control: her will to survive. This was a war she wasn't ready to lose, and she would fight to the end. The story has only just begun. Will Zola escape her father's grasp, or will she face the consequences of a betrayal too deep to repair? Don't miss the next part of this deadly saga. Subscribe and hit the bell to stay tuned for the shocking twists ahead. The betrayal runs deeper. The family conflict intensifies, and Zola would need to make a decision that will change everything. Zola lay in the cold, damp cell, her hands bound to a rusty metal pipe. Blood seeped through the bandages around her side, but her pain felt distant now. Her mind raced, thinking of the moment she was captured. It all felt like a nightmare. How could her father, General Delamny, have done this? betrayed her so completely? She had been the general's daughter, always praised, always loved. He had promised her a future of glory, but now he was the very one who ordered her death. Her father, the man who had taught her to fight for her country, was now part of the very system she had sworn to destroy. The door to the cell creaked open, and Zola looked up sharply. A familiar face entered the room. Captain Mpofu. He was the one who had led the soldiers to capture her. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was now her enemy, her betrayer. "Don't look at me like that, Mpofu," said Mpofu, his voice rough. He stepped closer, but kept his distance, like he was afraid of her. "I didn't have a choice, Zola." Zola's eyes narrowed. Didn't have a choice? He had always been loyal, always fought beside her. To hear him speak like this now, it was almost unbearable. "Don't talk to me like we're still friends, Mpofu," she spat, her voice full of venom. "You're just as guilty as he is. You're a traitor. You've sold your soul." Mpofu flinched, but his eyes never left hers. "You don't understand, Zola. The general, he made me choose. He said we needed to eliminate the threat before it grows any bigger." Zola was silent for a moment. Her heart pounded as she tried to piece together what Mpofu was saying. The general had planned it all, orchestrated everything from the start. But why? Why would he turn on his own daughter? "Your father wants you dead, Zola. He wants the Mafia gone. He sees you as a risk to his power." Zola's blood ran cold. "So I was just a pawn in his game?" She laughed bitterly, tears threatening to fall. "I gained everything for this country, and he's ready to throw me away just like that?" Mpofu didn't answer, but the guilt in his eyes was clear. He was trapped in the same system Zola had fought so hard to destroy. "You need to understand, Zola," Mpofu whispered, stepping closer. "It's not just about the Mafia. It's about control. Your father is hiding something much bigger than what we know." He paused, glancing around nervously. "He's involved with people, dangerous people. It's why he had to get rid of you." Zola's pulse quickened. What was he talking about? Dangerous people? Her father had always been a soldier, a hero. What could he possibly be involved in? "I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to help you. You're not alone in this. I can get you out, but you need to trust me." Zola stared at him, her mind whirling. Get her out? He had betrayed her. She couldn't trust him. But maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. If her father was involved with the Mafia or some other shady organization, she was walking straight into a trap designed by the very man she had loved and admired. "I will never trust you, Mpofu," she said coldly. "Not after what you've done." Mpofu looked at her with a mixture of regret and fear. He hesitated for a long moment, then spoke in a low voice. "If you don't, you'll die here. You'll die at your father's hands, and you won't get a chance to find out why." Zola's heart skipped a beat. Her father's hands. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Her father wasn't just betraying her. He was actively involved in something far worse than the Mafia. The woman who had grown up under his protection, who had looked up to him as a hero, now realized the truth. Her father had built an empire on lies and blood. Zola knows her life is in danger, but is the man she trusted the only way out? Will she choose revenge or uncover her father's darkest secrets? Stay tuned for more twists and heart-pounding action. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss what happens next. As the mystery deepens, Zola must make a choice that will change everything. Betrayal, revenge, and deadly secrets continue to collide. Zola spent the rest of the night staring at the cold stone wall of the prison cell, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. Mpufu's words echoed in her head. Her father was hiding something bigger than mafia dealings. What could be worse than that? What kind of man had he become? And more importantly, why was he willing to sacrifice his own daughter for whatever this was? Zola clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The pain from her wound had faded into the background. It was her anger, her confusion, and her need for revenge that consumed her now. She had to get out. She had to uncover the truth, and she would make her father pay for what he had done to her. The heavy door creaked open again, breaking the silence. Zola's eyes snapped to the entrance. Mpufu was standing there, his face grim, his eyes darting nervously around the dark corridor. He stepped inside without a word and locked the door behind him. "You came back," Zola said, her voice icy. She had expected him to leave her to rot in the cell, but here he was again, looking like he had something to say. "I can't stay long," he said quickly, glancing over his shoulder. "The general, he's already made arrangements. You'll be executed at dawn unless you escape now. You need to leave, Zola, now." Zola stood up, her legs shaky but strong enough to carry her. She knew the time had come. Either she ran or she would die here, just as her father had planned. The thought made her sick, but the anger burned hotter. She wasn't going to let him win. "I'm listening," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Mpufu pulled out a small, folded map from his jacket and handed it to her. "There's a route that will take you out of the base. It's dangerous, but it's your best chance. There's a hidden passage in the storage room, and if you move fast enough, you can get past the guards." Zola took the map, studying it carefully. She had trained her entire life for moments like this. The fight, the strategy, the stealth, it was all second nature to her. But her trust in Mpufu was shattered. Could she rely on him, or was he just leading her into another trap? Mpufu noticed her hesitation. "I know you don't trust me, Zola, and I don't blame you, but I'm not doing this for your father. I'm doing this for you. I don't want you to die in here." Zola stared at him, searching for any sign of deception, but all she saw was fear and regret. She didn't know if she believed him, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. Her escape depended on him. "Fine," she said coldly, "but the moment you betray me again, you'll regret it." Mpofu nodded quickly. "I understand. Just please, move fast." Zola felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Escape meant abandoning everything: her past, her father's legacy, and the military she had once been so proud to serve. But it also meant she had a chance to fight back, to expose her father's lies, and to bring him down. They moved through the halls of the compound in silence, Zola leading the way with the stealth of a predator. She couldn't afford any mistakes now. Every step was calculated, every sound measured. As they approached the storage room, she heard voices in the distance. Guards. They were close. The guards were right around the corner. Zola pressed her back against the wall, feeling the adrenaline surge in her veins. This was it, her chance to escape, to find the truth. The voices grew louder, and Zola's heart began to race. Mpofu looked at her, his face pale. They needed to move now. Without a word, Zola darted into the storage room, the door creaking softly as it closed behind her. She motioned for Mpofu to follow, and they crept through the narrow passage. The map had shown this as the only way out, but she wasn't sure where it led. They reached the end of the hallway, and Zola's heart skipped a beat. The guards were right outside. She could hear them, talking. Too close now. They'd have to fight their way through. But just as she was about to act, something caught her eye. A figure in the shadows. Her breath caught in her throat. It was her father, General Delamini. The general is right there, but Zola's escape is nearly in her grasp. Will she confront him, or is this part of his plan? The twists continue. Don't miss what happens next. Hit subscribe now to see how Zola's story unfolds. Zola faces her father, and the truth begins to unfold. Is it too late for redemption? Zola's body went rigid. The figure standing in the shadows wasn't just any soldier. It was General Delmini, her father. She had hoped, no, prayed, that she wouldn't have to face him like this. But here he was, standing before her, the man she had once looked up to as a hero, now the very symbol of betrayal. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Zola's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to scream, to confront him, to demand answers. But the words stuck in her throat. She hadn't expected to see him here, not like this, in the middle of her escape. Her father's cold eyes met hers. There was no warmth, no recognition in them, just the calculating gaze of someone who had already made their decision. Zola, he finally spoke, his voice a low, controlled whisper. You shouldn't have come here. She clenched her fists, her jaw tightening. You ordered them to kill me, to bury me alive, and now you're standing here like nothing happened? She took a step forward, her voice rising with each word. What happened to you, father? You used to be a man of honor. The general's face remained stoic, but Zola could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Was it regret, or was it just indifference? You don't understand, Zola. This isn't just about you. It's about power, about protecting the nation from those who want to destroy it. Destroy it? Zola's voice was full of disbelief. You're working with the Mafia, killing your own soldiers, your own flesh and blood. How is that protecting anyone? Her father sighed deeply, the weight of his years pressing down on him. You never understood, did you? I didn't want this life for you, Zola. But the world we live in isn't kind. It's a world of power. The Mafia, they're not the only enemy. There are people within our own ranks who would tear this country apart. I had to make a choice, and I chose the greater good. Zola's eyes widened. The greater good? Her mind reeled. She couldn't understand how this man, her father, the one who had trained her, who had instilled in her a sense of duty and honor, was the same man orchestrating these horrors. By betraying your own daughter? Zola spat, her anger boiling over. You call this the greater good? You killed me to protect your empire. You don't even see me as your daughter anymore. I'm just a pawn to you. The general's face softened for a fraction of a second, but then it was gone, replaced by the mask of the soldier who had always put duty before everything else. It was never personal, Zola. You were a soldier first, a weapon to protect this country. I had to make sure that you wouldn't become a threat. And I failed you. I see that now. But the damage is done. The choices are already made. Zola felt a cold rage welling up inside her. She couldn't believe what he was saying. Her father, the man who had trained her, who had raised her, was now the very thing she had spent her whole life fighting against. You're right about one thing, Zola said, her voice icy. You failed me, father, but I won't be your pawn anymore. Her father didn't respond. He just looked at her with a mixture of resignation and something else. Something Zola couldn't quite place. Guilt? Or was it just the recognition that his daughter was no longer the obedient soldier he had trained her to be? Zola, he said, his voice almost pleading, if you leave now, you can still have your life. I'll make sure you're safe. There's no need for you to die in this war. Zola stared at him, her eyes filled with the bitter truth. You've already killed me. You killed the daughter you once knew. There's nothing left for me in your world. Nothing left for me in your lies. With a swift movement, Zola pulled the knife from her belt, holding it up as she stepped back, the rage in her heart boiling over. She had come this far. She couldn't back down now. She wouldn't let him turn her into the same monster he had become. Her father's eyes flickered, and for the briefest of moments, Zola saw something vulnerable behind his cold facade. But there was no turning back now. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," Zola said, her voice steady, her eyes burning with the promise of revenge. Without waiting for him to respond, she turned sharply and dashed towards the hidden exit Mpufu had shown her, her heart thumping in her chest. She had to escape. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. This was no longer just about revenge. This was about something bigger, something her father had been too blind to see. She would make him pay, not just for her, but for the lives he had destroyed in his quest for power. Zola's father betrayed her, but now the path to justice is clearer than ever. Will Zola escape her father's grasp, or will he destroy everything she holds dear? Subscribe and turn on notifications to find out what happens next in this deadly saga. Zola's journey continues, but with new enemies and more shocking truths. Will she survive the storm that's coming? Zola ran through the shadows, her heart pounding with the rhythm of desperation and resolve. The hidden passageway that Mufufu had shown her led to an underground garage, where an old military vehicle was parked, waiting for her escape. Her breath came in quick bursts, and the sharp pain in her side had returned, but Zola pushed it aside. Nothing mattered more than getting away. The general's betrayal had shattered her, but the fire of revenge burned hotter than ever. She reached the garage doors and paused, her hand on the cold metal. For a second, she closed her eyes and pictured her father's face, the man she once admired, the man who had taught her everything she knew. But now, he was nothing more than a memory, the man who had turned his back on her, on the very family he had promised to protect. Zola's fingers gripped the handle of the vehicle, and she shoved the door open. As the engine roared into life, she took one last look at the compound that had been her home for so long. It felt strange, leaving it all behind. But there was no going back now. There was only one path forward. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Zola yanked it out, praying it wasn't another threat from her father. But it was a message from Mufufu. "They know you're gone. Get to the safe house. It's the only way." Zola's stomach tightened. Safe house? Had Mufufu been planning this from the start? Was he playing her again? But she didn't have time to dwell on that now. She could feel the weight of the general's soldiers closing in. They were already on their way to find her. They knew she was the key to everything, and they wouldn't rest until she was either dead or under their control. She slammed her foot on the gas pedal, and the truck roared into the night. The thick African jungle blurred past her, the trees whipping by in a blur of green and black. The road was narrow, winding, and filled with danger. She couldn't afford to slow down, not now. Her mind raced as she thought of her next move. What was the general hiding? What was the secret that he was willing to destroy everything for? The pieces were scattered, and Zola couldn't afford to stop until she had the answers. She needed to know why her father had done this, why he had sacrificed her and so many others. She needed to know the truth. As she sped through the night, her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a vehicle approaching fast behind her. Zola's eyes widened. She glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the headlights of an oncoming car growing closer with every second. They had found her. Zola's heart skipped a beat. She pushed the pedal harder, swerving around a corner just in time to avoid a head-on collision with another vehicle that had appeared out of nowhere. The road was getting rougher, and Zola's hands gripped the wheel tighter, her knuckles turning white. The car behind her wasn't letting up. It was relentless. She could see the headlights getting closer, and soon she could hear the roar of the engine behind her. They were gaining on her fast. Zola's mind raced, and the only thing that came to her was the plan. She wasn't going to let them catch her. With a quick turn of the wheel, Zola veered off the road, heading into the jungle. The wheels of the truck hit the thick underbrush, shaking violently as the vehicle jerked to the left and right. She barely held control. The car behind her wasn't giving up. It was still following her. But Zola knew she had one advantage. She was a soldier, and soldiers didn't get caught. Not by anyone. Zola pressed on, her eyes fixed ahead as she navigated the treacherous path in front of her. The truck bounced over rocks, swerved around trees, and tore through the brush. Her body ached, the pain from her side flaring up with each jolt of the truck. But she didn't care. She had to keep moving. And then, just as she thought she might lose them, the engine sputtered. The truck stuttered and came to a halt. Zola cursed under her breath. No! She quickly opened the door, stepping out into the thick forest, her mind racing. The soldiers were close now. She could hear their voices, their footsteps crunching through the leaves. Zola didn't have time to panic. She ran, slipping between trees, hiding in the shadows as the soldiers searched the area around her. But just as they were about to spot her, a figure appeared from the shadows. It was Mpofu. Zola is on the run, but can she trust Mpofu? The truth is getting closer, but the danger is too great. Will she uncover her father's secret, or will she be caught? Don't miss the explosive conclusion. Subscribe now and hit the bell to stay updated. Zola faces her ultimate choice, to trust Mpofu or risk everything to expose the truth. The battle for her future is just beginning. Zola stood still in the dense underbrush, breathing hard, her heart racing. She could hear the soldiers drawing closer, their footsteps like thunder through the jungle. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to run, but the figure in front of her stopped her cold. It was Mpofu, the man who had once been her trusted ally, the man who had led her into this nightmare. Now he was the key to her escape, or her downfall. Mpofu, Zola said, her voice raw from exhaustion. What are you doing here? I thought you betrayed me. And Mpofu didn't answer right away. His face was hard, but there was a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I didn't betray you, Zola, he said softly. I made a choice. I had no choice but to follow orders. But it was never about betraying you. It was about survival. Survival? Zola repeated, incredulous. You risked my life for your own survival, Mpofu? You helped them capture me, nearly kill me, all for your own safety? I thought it was the only way, he muttered, his gaze drifting to the ground. But now, I see the truth. The truth? Zola's eyes narrowed, her body tense. What truth, Mpofu? That my own father, the general, has been using me all this time? That I was nothing but a pawn in his game? And Mpofu finally met her gaze, and there was something in his eyes, a deep regret, a burden he could no longer carry. Yes, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But you don't know everything. The general, he's involved with people you don't understand. It's not just about the Mafia, Zola. He's working with forces that could destroy everything. Zola's mind spun. The general, her father, the man who had raised her, the man who had instilled in her every principle she lived by, was now the very thing she had sworn to fight against? It was too much to take in. She couldn't trust him anymore. Zola took a step toward him, her eyes hard. You're saying you've been lying to me the whole time, using me to protect your own skin? No, Mpofu said urgently. I never wanted this. I didn't want to betray you, but we both know the stakes are too high now. The air between them grew tense. The sounds of the soldiers were getting closer. Zola glanced over her shoulder, knowing they didn't have much time left. You said something about a safe house, Zola said, her voice determined. Take me there. You owe me that much. We need to find out everything. I'm not going back to him, Mpofu. Not ever again. Mpofu hesitated, but then nodded. I'll take you, Zola, but it's not just about escaping anymore. It's about bringing your father down. Once we do, the whole country will know the truth. Zola looked into his eyes, seeing the conflict within him. He had once been her ally, her brother in arms. Could she trust him now? Could he really help her? Or was he just as lost as the rest of them? She didn't have a choice. "Let's go," she said firmly. "It's time to end this."